Good evening, Facebook. Happy Saturday. Hope you've had a cracking day. I had a mega awesome day today, and it ties into what I wanted to talk about tonight, which is really, really cool. For Father's Day, a couple of weeks ago now, um, my wife and a friend's wife organised for us to go rock climbing and to go down and drive in a Formula One simulator. And, I was thinking about um, like both of these things in a way, and how they can help us think about, not just approaching education from a single mindset, and that mindset particularly being about taking information from one person's head and sticking that information into another person's head. Um, the thing is that what both of these things drew out was the environment is so important. So we were just down at the rock climbing centre, and we're just having a bit of a fun time of it and just enjoying a day out. But what we other people that were there were quite obviously experienced climbers, and you know they're indoor climbing on a rock climbing wall, but um, they're training and learning their craft. So you can't really learn to rock climb theoretically. It's a skill that you've got to build and learn. And we can easily go, oh well, that's a skill, so that doesn't fall into the same kind of thing that we do most of our education with, which is you know needs more theory, and so we need classrooms for it. The other thing that we did, which was really cool, was we went and sat in simulator Formula One cars and drove these simulated Formula One cars with this massive big screen, fully immersive. It was, yeah, really cool experience. But again, like talking to the guy that runs the place, and just saying how drivers can come in and use those sort of simulated. He had other simulators there as well, but use those and actually practice their driving, and it does make improvement. And again, that is another example where it's quite well. That's a practical set of skills. You've got to learn the muscle memory and things like that. But what we can lose sight of is that with anything, we're always bodily immersed into environments. So an example that might help make this a little bit clearer is I used to be in a part a long time ago. I worked as an electrician, and I worked for the power authority in the state that I lived in. And part of what I did was testing like circuitry, all these relays, and so a relay is like a switch, like you would turn off and on for a light, but it operates automatically under particular different circumstances, and there might be more than one switches in there, and that'll make things happen. Well, we would have in this section, we would get engineers, new graduate engineers that would come down, and they were used to looking at what is called a schematic diagram. So it's not a drawing of what the actual inside of the control circuitry looks like, but it's a drawing that shows all the little switches and where they lead to and what action they'll have happen. And it was very interesting to watch how often it wasn't until they could see the actual panel that they really understood what a schematic drawing was all about. Once they started to really see inside and see that this wire went from here to here, and this relay is sitting here, and it, over here it has this many switches. So it was that sort of immersive experience of coming into an environment where this thing actually was, and they could see it and they could watch it operate. That took their level of learning to another level and another plane. And so I think it's really important when we think, particularly from a Christian perspective, about education, because how we go about education and how we go about teaching really says something about that teaching process. And so do we see teaching within Christian ministry that you're involved in? Because normally a Christian ministry will have some element of seeking to enable people to grow and develop and learn. Um, but sometimes what we can do is actually see people more as receptacles that need to be filled up with new information. Um, Rather than, and this ties in a little bit with what I was talking about last night as well, rather than understanding that there's an environmental experience, and part of that environmental experience is that we are called into a community of faith and into a body of faith, and there is a process of learning and growing and developing within that. That's not just about head knowledge. That's not just about a singular experience, but it's actually a communal experience. And one thing that's really interesting, I find, is if you a lot of the passages that talk about maturity. There's a number of passages actually that talk about maturity. So one would be in Ephesians, where it's talking about that the church has been given pastors and teachers and leaders, and they're given to equip all the other saints so that together the church would grow to maturity. So it's, often when we talk about maturity in faith in Christian circles, it's very individualized, whereas it's really cool in Ephesians in particular. I can't think of examples of other places off the top of my head, but where it talks about maturity in the faith actually being a collective thing, actually being a church that is mature in its faith. And I think there's something about learning that together and growing and flourishing together, and creating environments that encourage that and empower that. So that's it for tonight. I think the kind of environments we create for people to learn in has a huge impact on education, not just the content of what we're teaching and not just how we're teaching, but the environments that we invite people into. So that's it for tonight. Don't forget, tag someone if you think they'd like it. Anyone that's maybe a small group leader, your home group leader or something like that, give them a tag. They might like to think about what kind of environment they create in their small group. I hope you enjoyed your Saturday as much as I enjoyed mine, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another Media Theology post. We're nearly at the end of the month. I think we've got 3 to go, maybe 2 to go. So that's exciting. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.